Hey everyone, welcome back to DevCraft Project. In today's video, we're going to build a simple and beginner-friendly notes app using just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. This app will let us create new notes, edit them directly on the page, and delete them whenever we want. Before we dive into the code, let me quickly show you how our Notes app works. Here at the top, we have a clean header with the title Notes app and a button that says Add New Task. When I click this button, a brand new note card appears in the task area below. Each note is completely editable. That means I can click inside it and type anything I want, like my tasks, reminders, or quick notes. And if I no longer need a note, I can simply click the little trash icon, and it will be removed instantly. The layout is responsive. The design is neat with a gradient background, and everything feels simple and user-friendly. This is the exact app we're going to build step by step in this video. If you're enjoying this project so far, don't forget to leave a like, drop a comment with your thoughts, and of course, subscribe to DevCraft Project for more beginner-friendly coding tutorials. Alright, let's start building our Notes app. The very first step is to create a new project folder on desktop. I'll name it Notes app. Once the folder is created, I'll open it inside Visual Studio Code. Inside this folder, we need to create 3 files. The first one is index.html, which will hold the structure of our app. The second is style.css, which will handle all the styling and design. And finally, script.js, where we'll write the JavaScript to make our Notes app interactive. So now that our project setup is ready, let's begin with the HTML file. To quickly generate the basic HTML boilerplate, I used a shortcut. On my keyboard, I pressed Shift+1 and then Enter, and Visual Studio Code automatically created the full HTML template for me. After that, I edited the title tag to say Notes app, which will appear on the browser tab. Next, I linked my CSS file with style.css. This will apply all the styling we write later. Now, to use icons, we need Font Awesome. So I went to my browser, searched for Font Awesome CDN, opened the first result, and copied the very first link they provided. I pasted that here in the head section. This allows us to use Font Awesome icons without downloading anything. Now let's move to the body. I created a div with the class container, which will wrap everything in our app. Inside the container, we have a div with the class header. This is our top bar. Inside that, I added another div with the class heading, and inside it an h1 tag that says Notes app. Next to it, I added a button with the class add task. But instead of just plain text, I wanted a plus icon here. So I went back to the browser, searched for Font Awesome plus icon, went to the official website and copied the circle plus icon code. I pasted it inside my button, so now it shows a plus icon followed by the text Add New Task. Finally, below the header, I created a div with the class task container. This is where all of our notes will appear later when we add them with JavaScript. And at the very bottom, I linked my JavaScript file with script.js. This will connect our HTML with the logic we'll write soon. And that completes our HTML setup. Let's take a quick look at what we've got so far. And here it is, our Notes app is showing up on the screen. Right now, we can only see the title Notes app at the top, along with a button that says Add New Task. And below that, we have an empty space where our notes will appear later. Alright, let's move to our CSS file now. First thing, I'll start with a little reset. So I'll select everything using the star selector, and here I'll set margin 0, padding 0, and also box sizing border box. This just clears out all the default browser spacing and makes sure our sizing works the way we want. Now, let's style the body along with the header and heading together. Inside this, I'll make them all flexbox by adding display flex. Then justify content center to center things horizontally, and align items center to center vertically. And I'll also give them a border radius 1 rem just to keep the corners smooth. Next, let's move specifically to the body. So here I'll add a background. I'll use a linear gradient going to the right from a light teal to a dark green. And I'll set the height to 100 VH, which basically means it will cover the full height of the screen. Now for the main container. I'll give it a semi-transparent black background, then a little box shadow to make it pop. For the size, I'll set the width to about half, So width, 51%. Add some spacing inside with padding, 1.5 rem. And finally, border radius, 1 rem. So the container also has rounded corners. Alright, let's save this, and now if I go back to the browser, you can see we have our app centered with a nice gradient background and a clean container in the middle. Let's style the header section. So I'll target .header, and inside here, I'll give it a background color first. That's the same semi-transparent black we used for the container, just to keep things consistent. For alignment, I'll change it a bit, justify content space around, so the title and the button spread out evenly. Then some spacing, padding 2 rem 0. And I'll also add a subtle shadow with box shadow to make it stand out from the container. Now let's style the heading itself. So .heading, I'll set the text color to white. And let's shrink it a little, font size 1 rem. Next up, the Add Task button. So .add task, I'll keep the background transparent. Remove the default outline with outline, none. Then I'll give it a nice border 2px solid cyan. For the text, I'll set font size 0.8 rem and change the color to the same cyan. Some spacing with padding 0.5 rem. And I'll round it nicely with border radius 1 rem. Now let's also add a hover effect to make it feel more interactive. So .add task hover here, I'll switch the background to cyan. And for contrast, I'll change the text color to dark green. Finally, I'll add a smooth transition 0.5 second all ease. So it doesn't just snap instantly but animates smoothly. Alright, let's save this. And back in the browser, now you can see the header is styled, the title looks clean, and the add button has a nice hover animation. Now let's add some spacing for the plus icon inside our button. So I'll target .fa circle plus, and here I'll just give it margin right 10px. That way the icon doesn't stick too close to the text, it leaves a little breathing room. Next, let's style the section where all our notes will appear, the task container. So .task container, I'll make it position relative so we can position elements inside later if needed. Then add some space at the top with margin top 1 rem. For the layout, I'll use flexbox again, so display, flex. I'll set justify content space between, so the notes spread out nicely. And add gap 1 rem to create spacing between each note card. I'll also add flex wrap, so if there are too many notes, they'll automatically move to the next line instead of going off screen. Now, since this area can hold lots of notes, I'll manage scrolling. I'll hide horizontal scroll with overflow X, hidden, and allow vertical scroll with overflow Y, auto. I'll also fix a height here, height 345px, so the notes section doesn't grow endlessly. And finally, a little padding inside with padding, 0.5 rem, so the notes don't touch the edges. This whole part will reflect when we add this through JavaScript later. Okay, next up I want to style the scroll bar inside our notes area so it matches our design. I'll add the WebKit scroll bar styles for .task container. First style sets the scroll bar width to 8 pixels, a nice slim look. Now the track, the background area behind the thumb, so the track will be a light gray and rounded. It blends nicely with our container. Next the thumb, that's the draggable part. Here I used a vertical gradient from cyan to dark green, so the scroll bar matches our app's colors, and I rounded it for a soft look. And finally a hover effect for the thumb, so it gives visual feedback when you hover. That just shifts the gradient slightly on hover to feel more interactive. Quick note. These WebKit scrollbar rules work in Chrome, Edge, and Safari. Firefox uses a different approach, so if you need cross-browser scrollbar styling, you can add that later. Alright, now let's style the note box itself. So I'll target .inputBox. For the size, I'll set the height to 150px and the width to 300px. I'll add some inner spacing with padding 1 rem. Then remove the default highlight using outline none. For the border, I'll give it 2px solid, just a light gray border to define the box. Round the corners with border radius 1 rem. And I'll set the text color to white, so it's readable on the dark background. Finally, I'll hide scroll bars inside the note box by adding overflow Y hidden and overflow X hidden. Next, let's style the delete button that sits on top of each note. So button.delbtn, I'll make it position absolute so it can float in the corner of the note. Then I'll shift it using margin left 270px and margin top -40px, so it aligns properly. Remove the default styles with outline none and border none. For size, I'll set font size 20px. The color will be a bright red so it clearly looks like a delete button, and the background stays transparent with background transparent. And that's it. Our CSS part is complete. Now our Notes app is fully styled with a clean layout, a nice gradient background, smooth buttons, and even a custom scroll bar. So let's move on to the exciting part, writing the JavaScript to make this app interactive. First, I'll open up the script.js file. We need to select some elements from our HTML so we can use them in JavaScript. I'll start by creating a variable for the task container where all the notes will appear. Here I'm using document.querySelector to grab the element with the class.taskContainer. This is basically the diff in our HTML where all the notes will be stored. Next, we need to grab the add button, the one that says add new task. Again, we're selecting by the class.addTask, which is the button inside the header. We'll later add a click event to this button so that whenever we press it, a new note will be created. Finally, let's also create a variable for a note itself. Right now, .inputBox doesn't exist yet in our HTML. We'll actually be creating it dynamically with JavaScript later. That's why I used let here instead of const, because the notes will keep changing and updating as we add or remove them. So with these 3 lines, we've selected the main pieces we'll be working with. Now let's make our add new task button actually work. I'll add an event listener to it. That means whenever I click this button, something will happen. This is saying, hey JavaScript, whenever the user clicks on this add button, run the function inside these curly brackets. Inside this function, the very first thing we want to do is create a new task box. So I'll create a new diff. This line literally creates a new diff element in memory. Now, I don't want it to just be a plain diff, I want it to have a class so that it can take CSS styling. So I'll give it a class name. Now our new div will have the class task item. Later on, we'll use CSS to style it properly so it looks like a neat note. Next, inside this task box, I want a text area where the user can actually type their note. But instead of a text area, I'll make a paragraph element and make it editable. This creates a p element. And again, I'll give it a class name so it matches our CSS. Now here comes the interesting part. I want users to be able to click inside this paragraph and type directly. For that, I'll use a special property called content editable. This makes the p element behave like an input box. Users can just click and start typing their notes. In the next step, we'll add a delete button to each note and then actually attach everything to the page. I'll start by creating a button element. This makes a new in memory. Now I'll add a class to it so that it takes the CSS styling we already wrote. I'll also add a tooltip so that if someone hovers over it, it will show text saying, delete task. For that, I'll use the title attribute. Now, I don't want this button to just be plain text. I want a nice trash can icon inside it. So I'll create an eye element, which is how font awesome icons work. Then I'll give this icon the correct font awesome classes for a trash can. Perfect. That gives us the trash can icon. Now we need to put the icon inside the button. So I'll use a pen child. Now our delete button has a trash can inside it. But of course, just showing the button isn't enough, it needs to actually work. So I'll add a click event listener to this delete button. What this means is, whenever I click this delete button, it will remove the entire task item from the page. So, the note completely disappears, just like deleting a sticky note in real life. Now we have a fully working delete feature for each note. Alright, now that we've created our input box and delete button, the last step is to put everything together. First, I'll attach the input box into the task item. This means that inside each note card, we'll now have a text area where we can type. Next, I'll attach the delete button into the same task item. So now, every note card has both the text box and the delete button. Finally, we need to add this whole task item into the main container that's on our page. That container is our .task container. And that's it. Now, whenever we click on Add New Task, a brand new note will appear on the screen with editable text and a delete button to remove it anytime. Alright, let's go ahead and test our Notes app in the browser. Here on the screen, you can see our main interface. We've got the title at the top and the Add New Task button on the right. Now, let's click the button, and you can see a brand new note card appears. Inside this card, we have an editable text area. I can click inside and type whatever I want, like buy groceries or finish my coding project. Each note is completely editable. You can update it anytime. And over here, on the top corner, we've got the red delete button. If I click on that, the note instantly disappears. I'll add a couple more tasks so you can see now I've got multiple notes, each with their own text and delete option. The cool thing is you can add as many notes as you like, and it automatically handles them inside the scrollable container with our custom scroll bar design. So that's our Notes app, a clean, simple project built with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And that's it for today's project. Our very own Notes app built completed. I really hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you enjoyed building this with me, make sure to give this video a like, and let me know in the comments what project you'd like to see next. I love hearing your ideas. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to DevCraft Project and turn on the notification bell, so you won't miss any of the upcoming tutorials. Thanks so much for watching, keep coding, and I'll see you in the next one.